Bonjour tout le monde. Quel plaisir d'être de retour aux Nations Unies. What a pleasure to be back at the UN. Happy to take your questions.
Thank you. Melissa Kent, CBC, Radio-Canada, based here at the United Nations. And on behalf of the United Nations Correspondents Association, we'd like to thank you for coming to brief reporters today. My question is that your speech focused on a very domestic issue, a very domestic story, in front of a very international crowd. And I'm wondering why you chose to dedicate almost the entire speech to Indigenous people's issues, the wrongs that have been committed, and not more international issues, refugees, for example, and most specifically, Canada's peacekeeping promise.
I think one of the things that Canada has demonstrated over the course of its engagement with the UN, its engagement with the international community, is a sense of being there to help, of being involved in international issues, in crises, in development aid, and helping through diplomatic challenges. Canada has often used the UN as a way to leverage its own opportunities to help and support around the world. I think it's important, however, particularly in reflecting on the sustainable development goals, that we also acknowledge what we have to do at home. I think as we look at the SDGs, which apply to every country, if there are things that we are not doing right at home, I think we need to take responsibility for it. A number of times in conversations over the years when I have suggested that certain countries need to do better on their own human rights, on their own internal challenges, the response has been, well, tell me about the plight of Indigenous people in Canada. I think it's time that we actually stood up and took responsibility for the terrible mistakes of the past and shared at the UN, because quite frankly, what the UN exists for in large part is for countries to share challenges, perspectives, and solutions, and to talk about how we are moving forward on meeting the challenges that we must meet, how we take care of the beam in our own eyes as we engage with others' motes, as we look to continuing to walk the talk on human rights, on equity and equality, on opportunity for all. This was an opportunity, particularly given that it's the 10th year anniversary of the United Nations Declarations on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, to talk about how we're doing on it, what we're doing on it, and how we think we can all benefit from this message of respectful reconciliation and moving forward in thoughtful ways that empower and respect the rights of traditionally disadvantaged communities within our countries.
And the second part of my question is, I think here a lot of people, you wouldn't be surprised to hear, I'm sure, we're expecting to hear something about Canada's peacekeeping pledge. The second part of my question was, why was that? Did that not come up at all? And si on peut avoir des réponses en français aussi pour nos collègues francophones, ça serait très apprécié.
Vous n'avez qu'à demander.
D'abord,
je suis très content d'avoir pu prendre l'occasion aujourd'hui pour parler des peuples autochtones au Canada. Pour moi, c'est important que si on veut continuer d'être engagé dans le monde de façon constructive, si on veut parler aux gens de droits humains, de protection des minorités, de valorisation, d'opportunités pour tout le monde de réussir dans nos pays, il va falloir qu'on soit honnête par rapport à notre grande faillite au Canada, de respecter et de traiter de façon juste et adéquate et responsable nos peuples autochtones. Donc, de partager comment nous le faisons, comment nous approchons ce problème-là, pour moi, c'est un exemple de comment, je pense, les pays devraient être très ouverts avec les défis par rapport à nos responsabilités internes ainsi qu'externes. Et je pense que c'était un message important pour souligner cette année lors de la 10e anniversaire de la Déclaration des Nations Unies au sujet des peuples autochtones, des droits des peuples autochtones. In regards to peacekeeping, Canada is re-engaging in the world in many different ways, and we made a strong commitment to re-engage in peacekeeping with up to $500 million and up to 600 troops engaged in a constructive way around the world. But Canadians understand that whenever a government takes a decision to send Canadian women and men into harm's way, we need to do that decision, do due diligence on that decision and make sure that we're finding the right way, that we can not just help in a way of allowing our troops to be successful, but making sure that it's the best way that Canada can help. So we continue to take this responsibility very seriously and look forward to making an announcement in the future. Le Canada prend très au sérieux son engagement dans le monde, que ce soit au niveau de la diplomatie, du développement ou bien des engagements militaires. Mais les Canadiens, et d'ailleurs toute personne, s'attend à ce que quand leur gouvernement envoie des hommes et des femmes dans des endroits dangereux, on le fait avec la pleine conscience de comment ils vont pouvoir réussir, si c'est la meilleure façon à aider, avec les bons outils. Et nous sommes en pleine réflexion sur comment le Canada peut mieux aider à se réengager dans des opérations de la paix. Quand nous aurions quelque chose à annoncer, on va certainement vous le laisser savoir.
Raj, Huffington Post, Canada.
Hello. In your speech, you mentioned that we would be a full supporter without qualifications of UNDRIP. Last year, your Justice Minister told Canada that that was unfeasible, that including UNDRIP in Canadian law would not be something that you could do. Are you announcing new policy? I know you released those 10-point guidelines in the summer, but is this a change of policy?
Our Indigenous Affairs Minister, Carolyn Bennett, announced last year that we were supporting UNDRIP without qualification. We continue to engage with Indigenous peoples in Canada. We've put forward guiding principles on the implementation. We've put forward a working group on laws and policies so that we can shift our behaviors within all of government. We know this is a process that will take time and will require some deep and significant shifts in how the government operates. But that's exactly what we need to do in this situation. This is a situation that has taken generations, if not centuries, to get to this terrible point, or difficult point at least. It's going to take significant amount of time to change our institutions, to change our behaviors, and to build a true relationship based on reconciliation and rights. That is something that we continue to be committed to.
Is that a yes?
This is an announcement we made last year.
Okay, my follow-up question. I was surprised how internal looking the speech was. You know, you say we want a Security Council seat, and yet you really didn't have much to say on the big international issues that is being discussed at the UN at the moment. Why not talk about, you know, what you'd like to see in Myanmar, what you think Canada should be doing or the world should be doing with regards to North Korea? Why make it so domestic?
The theme of this year's UN General Assembly centers around people. Understanding that fighting for people's rights, defending minorities, defending their opportunities, their health, their safety, their education, defending the rights of women, defending the rights of people in this world is essential if we are going to move forward as a planet in any reasonable and realistic expectations of a better future. What we shared today is the Canadian vision that taking care of people, the most vulnerable, the most marginalized in our society, is an essential step towards a better world. And that by taking responsibility for our own mistakes and helping others around the world with their challenges, Canada is clear-eyed and substantively engaged in the hard work of making the world a better place for all of its citizens. Obviously, as this week has unfolded, I've had many conversations on the plight of the Rohingya in Rakhine State in Myanmar, on the troubling developments in North Korea, on the situations in Venezuela, concerns around border issues and migrations around the world. This has been a very busy week for Canada to be engaged in a broad range of issues. But in my speech today, I wanted to highlight a strong issue that demonstrates that we take seriously our responsibilities of living up to the 2030 goals, both internally and around the world, and hope to spur real action by everyone as we take care of rebuilding our relationships and improving the situation for the most vulnerable and marginalized people in Canada, even as we stand up for vulnerable, marginalized, disenfranchised people around the world.
Raphaël Bouvier-Auclair avec Radio-Canada.
Bonjour, M. Trudeau, en français et en anglais, s'il vous plaît. Je veux revenir sur les missions de maintien de la paix. Il y a des gens qui attendent impatiemment des détails sur l'implication canadienne ici à l'ONU, dans les institutions internationales, également sur le continent africain. Quand votre gouvernement a dit « on est de retour, on va s'impliquer à nouveau » et qu'un an plus tard, on attend encore, est-ce que votre gouvernement a parlé trop vite dans ce dossier-là?
Non, pas du tout. On s'engage de bien des différentes façons avec notre nouvelle politique sur l'aide internationale qui est ancrée dans l'aide des gens les plus vulnérables et qui vise surtout les femmes et les filles. On est en train de démontrer un niveau d'engagement concret. Avec notre engagement militaire, que ce soit dans le nord de l'Irak, contre le Daesh, que ce soit en Lettonie, sur le front est de l'Europe, nous sommes très présents dans le monde. Nous allons continuer notre lutte contre les changements climatiques en étant des gens très actifs auprès des prochaines étapes à suivre après la conférence de Paris et en s'approchant de la COP 23 à Bonn, chapeautée par Fidji. Nous restons engagés de bien des façons et nous nous engageons de façon plus profonde à bien des niveaux. Mais une des promesses que j'ai faites, pas juste aux Canadiens, mais aux gens à travers le monde, c'est que le Canada allait faire les bonnes choses de la bonne façon et que nous prenons le temps de réfléchir de façon attentive à comment on peut le mieux aider en se réengageant dans les opérations de maintien de la paix. Ce n'est que ce à quoi les gens s'attendent d'un pays responsable. Canada has engaged and is stepping up on a broad range of measures around the world, whether it's our international development assistance that is focused on the most vulnerable and particularly on women and girls, whether it's engaging and showing leadership around the next steps in the Paris Accord and the fight against climate change, including looking towards COP23 in Bonn with Fiji's presidency, whether it's our military engagements in northern Iraq against Daesh or in Latvia, holding and standing strong on Europe's eastern front. Canada will continue to step up and engage. But the commitment I've made to Canadians and indeed to people around the world is Canada would figure out how it can best help and do it the right way. And that is why we are making sure that we have the right answers before we move forward on new engagements in UN peacekeeping.
Sur un tout autre sujet, beaucoup d'expérience au Québec, au Canada sur les questions référendaires. Voyez ce qui se passe en ce moment en Espagne, en Catalogne. Est-ce que vous condamnez l'arrestation de représentants du peuple démocratiquement élus par un gouvernement central?
Évidemment, nous espérons que la situation en Espagne se calme et que la règle de droit va être suivie. Mais en même temps, mes expériences au niveau des référendums et des questions semblables fait que j'ai comme principe assez ferme que les autres pays ne devraient pas se mêler de questions identitaires ou de souveraineté, parce que nous, au Québec, on n'appréciait pas que d'autres pays portent et parlent trop fort sur leurs opinions sur ce que les Québécois allaient et avaient à décider de eux-mêmes.
In English.
Obviously, we hope that the situation in Spain calms down, and we, of course, hope to see the rule of law followed and respected throughout. But my own experience in questions of separatism in regards to Quebec means that I feel very strongly that other countries shouldn't be weighing in on what should or should not happen in what is obviously an internal matter for a sovereign nation. It's something we certainly expected of friends and partners around the world as Canada and Quebec went through its reflections last time slightly over 20 years ago, and it's certainly something I'm going to respect in this case.
Jackson Prosco with Global News.
Thank you, Prime Minister. I wanted to get your reaction specifically to some of the language used by President Donald Trump during his address this week, specifically when he threatened to totally destroy North Korea. Does that type of language concern you? Does it alarm you? Does it? Do you feel that it's helpful given the current climate?
As always, I will pay close attention to what our American friends and neighbors have to say on any range of issues, but it's not my job to opine. It is my job to ensure that we maintain a good relationship with the United States, particularly as we renegotiate NAFTA, and also that Canada stays focused on de-escalating the situation in North Korea through diplomatic means, through close work with our friends and allies like the United States, South Korea, Japan, and work also closely with obviously important partners in China and Russia to put an end to North Korea's reckless behavior, preferably by diplomatic means, including full support for the UN Security Council sanctions.
And
Oui. Évidemment, je porterai toujours attention à ce que dit le président des États-Unis, mais ma responsabilité, c'est pas de partager mes opinions là-dessus. Ma responsabilité, c'est de travailler avec les États-Unis sur les enjeux qui nous sont chers, dont évidemment la renégociation de l'ALENA, qui va être important pour nos citoyens et pour notre économie, mais aussi sur notre désir de travailler avec eux et avec nos autres partenaires comme le Japon, la Corée du Sud, et la Chine et la Russie, sur une déescalation du conflit ou de la situation en Corée du Nord. C'est une situation qui nous préoccupe profondément et c'est pour ça qu'on endosse aussi fermement les propositions du Conseil de sécurité et les sanctions.
And just following up on your comments about the importance of the relationship with the United States, if I'm not mistaken, you had invited President Trump to visit Ottawa during your congratulatory phone call to him last November. Has there been any follow-up on that? Have you re-extended that invitation? Would you consider having President Trump in Ottawa a priority at this point?
I very much look forward to continuing to engage with President Trump, as I have in many different occasions around the world, on the phone and in person. And I also very much look forward to welcoming him to Canada next spring for the G7 Leaders Summit, which will be held in beautiful Charlevoix. I look forward to having a great discussion with our fellow G7 leaders on issues of gender, issues of economic growth, issues of global security that matter to everyone.
Thank you. We'll go to Kevin Gallagher from CTV.
Thank you, Mr. Prime Minister. Last time that Canada secured a seat on the UN Security Council, it cost the country reportedly $10 million. This time around, how much is Canada willing to sacrifice or give up financially and politically to secure that seat in 2021?
I think one of the things that is clear is that Canada is very much a supporter of multilateral institutions and very serious about engaging on the global stage. We know that we have much to say on a range of commissions in terms of promoting our values, promoting our perspective, and also giving voice to values and perspectives that many people share around the world. So Canada will always look for occasions to make our voice heard in meaningful ways that contribute to global opportunity, peace, and security. And running for a seat on the UN Security Council in 2021-2022 is something that is very much in keeping with the ways we look to continue to have a positive influence and positive impact on the world.
Just to follow up, a bit off topic, but Hurricane Maria has devastated the Caribbean country of Dominica, a Commonwealth country. Is there any response that Canada will give to Dominica in aid or relief?
I had the opportunity to speak with representatives of the mission from Dominica a little earlier today, and assured them that Canada will continue to be a great friend to Caribbean nations, particularly during this difficult time. We recognize the devastation that the hurricanes have caused in many countries, the loss of life, the terrible loss of infrastructure and economic opportunity. And I can assure our friends in Dominica, as I have assured our friends across the Caribbean, that Canada will continue to be a good friend to the Caribbean.
Thank you. Michelle Zilio with the Globe and Mail.
Good afternoon, Prime Minister. I wanted to ask you about your discussions that you had on our bid for the UN Security Council seat. How did those go this week, and how hopeful are you that Canada will win the seat it's going for in 2021 to 2022?
Canada has held a seat on the UN Security Council for just about every decade since the UN came into being. Canada is generally respected as being a strong and positive voice in multilateral fora, as being a voice not just for our values, but for shared values reflected around the world, and a voice that pushes for solutions and opportunities for everyone. This is very much in keeping with Canada's tradition of respect for multilateral institutions and support of those institutions, and I think it's a great thing that Canada is hoping to be on the Security Council for the 2021-2022 session. We are a number of years away from the actual vote, and we continue to be engaged thoughtfully on a broad number of issues with friends and partners around the world. The Security Council is a good way to engage in the world, but there are many ways, and we are pursuing many different paths at the same time.
And as a follow-up on a slightly different topic, Canada welcomed tens of thousands of Syrian refugees since your government took power. Will your government create a specific resettlement program for the Rohingya people of Myanmar who are currently being displaced?
Our priority right now is the safety and security of people in place. The crisis in Rakhine State is continuing to worsen. I have spoken directly with Aung San Suu Kyi. We have sent a letter to her expressing also to the commander of the Myanmar military how important it is that real action is taken to de-escalate, to cease the violence, to protect minorities, particularly in this case the Rohingya Muslim minority, but indeed all minorities in that country. Canada continues to engage with friends and partners in the region, including Indonesia, that has shown real leadership on proposing a path forward and a solution. This is a situation we take very, very seriously, and will continue to be a part of a number of countries who are putting pressure to protect those individuals and those communities and families. As for future steps, Canada remains a place that is there to protect people fleeing violence and persecution around the world. We have a strong but open immigration system, and we will always look at what we can do to ensure that people are evaluated and processed properly.
Alex Panetta with the Canadian Press.
Thank you, Prime Minister. So the first thing I'd like to ask you is, just going back to the North Korea question, it's pretty rare that you hear a leader from a G7 country threaten to totally destroy another country on the floor of the UN General Assembly Hall. So I guess what I'd like to do is ask you for your assessment of how grave the situation is there. Because if it is grave, it would arguably be your job to opine on it. And if it's not so grave, well then maybe it's not. So what I'd like to do is ask you, how serious do you think the situation in North Korea, and how close are we to something very, very dangerous happening?
I think the situation in North Korea is extremely serious. The North Korean regime represents a threat to not just regional security, but global peace. The reckless behavior, pronouncements, and development of nuclear weapons by North Korea represents something that all countries in the world should be seized with and concerned about. That's why we have been, over the course of these past days, but also over the course of these past weeks, so supportive in how we've engaged with friends and partners on this issue, how we stand with the UN Security Council and its sanctions, how we continue to have opportunities to exchange with leaders at all levels on this situation. I had a sit-down with President Moon of South Korea a couple of nights ago, in which we talked at significant length about the challenges South Korea is facing, obviously, but also the levers available to neighboring countries, from China to Russia, to ways to look at reducing the threat and de-escalating the situation. This is something that Canada takes very seriously and will continue to do so as we move forward.
Just ask the reporters to please turn their mics on when they ask a question.
Nous prenons très au sérieux cette situation en Corée du Nord. Le régime représente une menace pas seulement pour la sécurité de la région, mais pour la paix mondiale. C'est pour ça que le Canada est engagé avec nos partenaires, que ce soit les États-Unis, le Japon, la Corée du Sud, ainsi qu'avec la Chine et la Russie. J'ai eu l'occasion d'échanger avec le président Moon de la Corée du Sud il y a 2 soirs, et on a parlé longuement sur les défis auxquels ils font face, évidemment, mais aussi sur les pistes possibles de résolution de ce conflit, passant par la Chine, passant par la Russie, regardant ce que les Américains peuvent faire. Nous prenons très au sérieux nos responsabilités en tant que membres de la communauté des nations pour participer à la résolution de cette situation, à la déescalation, et on l'espère, par des moyens politiques et diplomatiques. Et c'est ce qu'on va continuer de faire.
And you'll allow me to ask you a question about, it's like the old Ted Kennedy question, why do you want to be president? Well, I'd like to ask you about why you want a seat on the Security Council. And to be more pointed about it, in the past, Canada has helped advance landmines issues, the ICC. What's the big goal this time? What do you want to achieve at the UN Security Council?
I think the way Canada has been engaging on the world stage is one that looks at protecting the most vulnerable, at defending the rights of women and girls and the opportunities to grow our economies through supporting women and girls to create peace and prosperity, through supporting women and girls, through defense of marginalized and vulnerable peoples around the world, to lifting people out of poverty as a way of not just creating opportunity, but creating security and stability. I think when we look at the big issues the world is facing, from migrations to climate change to widening gaps between the various income groups, to pressures through conflicts, sectarian and minority-based, we know that Canada has significant experience and significant contributions to make. We will continue to engage and contribute through multilateral fora, through the established rules-based global order. And we know that Canadians benefit when we have a time on the Security Council, but I don't think it's overly presumptuous of us to suggest that perhaps the world benefits when Canada has a voice on the Security Council, and we certainly look forward to making sure that that we continue to contribute in every way we can to the multilateral institutions that we believe in so deeply.